Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webcast. My name is Mike Otranto, and I'm a strategic account specialist at Microsoft. I'm also joined on today's webcast with Jim Patterson, who leads in the business development role. Today, we will focus on the ROI of managing your projects online, Agile PPM for the enterprise. After the webinar, you will receive an email with a copy of the recording and the slide deck so you can review. The line will not be open for questions, but you can type in your questions via the chat feature. So if you want to know more about Microsoft and who we are today, we are a Microsoft joint venture that was founded in 2002. We provide consulting, business process outsourcing, managed services, and global support for staffing. We are a triple gold certified Microsoft partner. Less than 1% of partners ever have that designation. We're certified in project portfolio management, collaboration and content, and cloud productivity. From a project and portfolio management standpoint, we have a deep expertise in Project Online and Project Server. So we have a lot of experience helping organizations maximize their efficiency and technological advantage. We have a footprint all over North America and internationally. I will now hand off the webcast to Jim Patterson. Jim?
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate the introduction. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for spending some time with us today for this webcast. Today's topic, the ROI of managing your projects online, Agile PPM for the enterprise. Some topics that we're going to cover today are some of the key benefits of moving online, some ROI factors and things to consider, some of the key costs of online software. We're also going to spend a lot of time demoing Project Online for Agile PPM and show that concept in action. Afterwards, we're going to talk about the ROI of some of the managed services pieces and how outsourcing that piece can sometimes improve your return. And then we'll summarize and wrap up and have some offers for you to consider. So with that, let's get started with the topic. When we talk about moving to the cloud, let's first define what it means to go to the cloud. You know, historically, folks manage their own infrastructures almost exclusively, meaning that they had the servers, they had the databases, they had the application software, etc. And on the left-hand side, basically you managed everything and all the aspects and the costs around that and the staffing time and the upkeep. With infrastructure as a service and things like AWS or Microsoft Azure today, it gives you the ability to get rid of the hardware, and they provide you the infrastructure in which to host the software, but you still manage the applications themselves and are responsible for keeping things running. So the idea is it's almost a partial solution as far as an outsourcing model for the customer or the end user. Today with PPM SaaS solutions like Project Online, software as a service or SaaS, it's all managed by the vendor, meaning that there's no longer any infrastructure components that you, the customer, has to worry about. You end up just focusing on delivering the work, managing your projects, or whatever that workload might be, and not have to worry about maintaining the infrastructure that enables it all. So ultimately, as analysts have found out and as customers have found out through experience, the cloud actually delivers a lower total cost of ownership overall. Sometimes when people look at these things, they look at the subscription cost versus the license cost of their on-premise software, and that's really only part of the picture. When we look at on-premises, there's also hidden costs as you look at whether or not to go to cloud, what type of other costs could you be eliminating or reducing moving forward. The graphic over to the left uses the concept of an iceberg, where the vast majority of the mass of that iceberg is below the water and you can't see it or is more hidden. And the licenses is that top part, really, that really only tells part of the story. On premises, the costs of procuring and maintaining hardware, the consultants that you need oftentimes to enable the solutions to get them up, the infrastructure that you have to put in place as far as networking and database and other things that maintain that, the maintenance over all of that, keeping it up and running, doing the upgrades, which can be very disruptive and time consuming and be large projects in and of themselves. And typically you need dedicated staff to maintain this infrastructure. All of those have both people, hardware, and software costs associated with those, let alone the telecom pieces, etc. When you go to cloud computing, the Yankee group studied and found substantially lower total cost of ownership, including 46% lower total cost of ownership because of the fact that there's no upfront license fees, no hardware infrastructure to procure, maintain, and keep up to date. You get to remove IT barriers in many cases, meaning that because someone else is maintaining it, you don't have to get on IT's docket and get on their list of priorities and when you can get their attention. You can also lower implementation costs, meaning you don't have to worry about the enablement and the stability or the environment variables of your own infrastructure by having a consistent cloud-based solution or environment that you can implement into. Also, no more upgrades, because when you're in a SaaS solution in the cloud, you're always on the most recent update or current version of the software that's available out there. And because it's a SaaS or a service model on usually a monthly or an annual fee, you have predictable costs as far as what it's going to cost you to actually run this solution in the cloud. Now, Microsoft has really made a big play into the cloud and really enabling organizations to move into this digital transformation age. And Microsoft PPM is no different as far as part of that strategy. If we look at this from the offerings in the Microsoft Cloud today, notice that the Microsoft PPM is only just one node in this Microsoft Cloud set of offerings. You know, the traditional workloads in that infrastructure as a service with Azure is definitely available, but enabling things like Power BI or leveraging the power of the business productivity tools in Office 365 or the business solutions platform in Dynamics 365 or Visual Studio and Visual Studio Team Services for the application development folks. And there's Office 365 Planner, all things that are enabled and actually work and interrelate very easily because of their delivery through a cloud or a SaaS set of solutions makes this digital transformation vision possible. And not only that, you get continuous innovation, meaning the whole idea of having the latest and greatest at your fingertips all the time. In the old on-premises model, if we look at the far left here on this timeline, we would get a major release of, say, Project Online, or Project Server, I should say, about every 3 years, and meaning you would wait for those major releases to get significant changes in the solution. There might be some major service packs in between, but the idea is that not only did you have to wait for them, but there was generally a significant disruption in getting those upgrades put into place and overlaid into your in-flight implementation of that solution. Now, because of incremental and continuous delivery, we get incremental additions of fixes, enhancements, and even new capabilities that come much more rapidly, but get dripped out to us much more incrementally, so they're not major changes for users to adopt over time. So the idea is the advantage is this continuous innovation and the rapid fire way that we can get new capabilities as technology allows it. Now, if we think about the current state of the project management marketplace, the reality of projects is we still have a lot of work to do. Estimates say that there's over $5 billion in failed projects in the US alone, that 68% of projects can be classified as either challenged or failed in their characterization. 82% of projects have schedule overruns, and 43% of projects have cost overruns. Definitely numbers that don't kind of make you pound your chest and say, wow, we've really got this thing nailed down. Now, when people put PPM solutions in place in general, right, irrespective of how it's deployed, analysts have found that significant improvements in overall strategic alignment, meaning that we're working on the right projects, 32% increases in schedule performance, so help impacting that other metric, 22% quicker time to market, meaning that we're getting the projects out the door quicker. And then an overall budget saving in a range of 2 to 5%, which can be significant dollars from the total IT spend that's out there today. And this, on top of that, if you can get the benefits and the value of doing this in the cloud, on top of just the process and effectiveness that you get from putting a good solid PPM solution in place, the combined effect can be very impactful to your organization. Now, Microsoft PPM is what Project Online is often called, is really designed to be an end-to-end solution, meaning from ideas and project requests, Fleshing them out into full business cases, doing the high-level planning that you would do so that you can have enough information to decide whether or not to embark upon certain projects or initiatives, to the detailed planning that we would do so that we can do execution at a detailed schedule and resource allocation level, all the way to successful completion and outcome of the projects. Now, what's new now with this is with Project Online or Microsoft PM that it's all enabled in the Microsoft Cloud as a SaaS offering. And within that, you get all of the collaboration tools, all of the insights, reporting, and analytics that you'd want. And then the extensibility is easily built in with things like Power Apps and Flow for things like building in workflow and process and different types of accessibility based upon the way your organization would like to access the information. The idea is this is all enabled in the cloud in a way that's simple to consume. If we look at some of Project Online's top benefits, one is it's part of the Office platform, meaning there's a lot of familiarity there. So if we look at people and organizations, many of which today are familiar with things like SharePoint, which this is built on that foundation, Exchange or Skype or other social capabilities that are built into Office. The idea there is that there's a familiarity that helps reduce the adoption risk and makes it easier for people to get involved. So that overall familiar ground can help with shortening ramp-up time and also any objection or difficulties in getting the people to adopt and use the solution. Also in the cloud, it gives Project Online the ability to provide a single governance model for folks. So whether it be intake and a common forum which to get ideas and requests, the idea which to process those things through workflow and approval processes, the idea is you can have that common funnel for all different types of projects within your organization. We'll talk about the variation on types of projects later on. Also, minimal upfront cost. We talked about lack of infrastructure and having to do capital expenditures on infrastructure and hardware. The idea is that turning it on is simple as subscribing, turning on the solution, and getting access to it. Obviously, there's some configuration that may need to be done for your organization, but there's a lot of ways to get that up quickly with pre-configured solutions that get people up quickly, much more quickly than they did in the past. Also, scalability. As your business matures, you don't have to size out your server farms and your databases based upon how big you might think it grows. Dynamically, these things will tap new resources in the Microsoft Cloud automatically as your user base demands it, without you having to worry about predicting those things or maybe overbuying infrastructure because you might grow into it later on. It also will scale from a capabilities perspective, so you can actually deploy this in a lighter weight fashion and use more robust or advanced capabilities later on because there is a rich set of capabilities that you can grow into. Chances are you won't outgrow the entire mix anytime soon. And just from a visual simplicity, just the tiles and the navigation and easy ways to get to those PPM capabilities make it a nice way to get into the solution. And as being part of the Office 365 cloud platform, it can become part of just the rest of your business productivity tool sets, just like your email and your Word and your SharePoint, whatever it might be. The idea is it just becomes another service or an application within that mix. There are advanced functionalities as you want to do advanced portfolio management and resource capacity planning, things that the steering committees want to do to track and align their investments. And along that, it's supported by very strong reporting with BI and automated feeds to Power BI and the ability to get rich decision-making tools for decision support within your organization. So these are just some of the things as to why you might want to consider Project Online and the advantages of doing it in the cloud. Forrester did a total economic impact study for Microsoft and looking at what the real returns are on these. And overall, look at some of these numbers that are pretty impressive. Overall, they found that the average ROI was 301%. That the net present value per user was $12,546, that there was a payback period of just over a half a year, and that the total benefits, when you total it all together, exceeded over $8 million for an implementation of Microsoft Project Online. Some of the areas where these savings and these economics took place was improved visibility into project performance, so it reduced project overruns by 5%. It improved resource management to the extent that it led to over $3 million in savings over 3 years on average. 13% reduction in project labor costs as a result, a 16% reduction in the time it takes to allocate resources to projects, means we get resources onto our projects sooner, and helping that time to market and get those projects out the door. A 14% average increase in resource utilization, meaning that we're maximizing productivity and making the best use of the scarce resources that we have at our disposal. Also, by providing synergies with the rest of the organization's Office 365 implementation, and many of you are out there that are already using Office 365 to some degree, it really provides a centralized enterprise collaboration across project and non-project work, meaning you get to use the tools and the business productivity tools in Office 365 in the context of your project and portfolio management process. It means it's integrated into that mix and not just a separate set of standalone solutions. So overall, some impressive numbers that Forrester came up with in this total economic impact study. Ultimately, our world is changing. You know, the past versus today, a more brick and mortar now to a more digital world. And the things that are happening today that are impacting us are the fact that projects that used to have long product cycles now required rapid innovation because the marketplace changes and technology changes so quickly that we don't have the luxury of long product cycles anymore. We don't just use email for communication, more social collaboration in a variety of methods, both with at our desktops and with our mobile devices as well. Just telecommuting, the traditional workplace means we have people working all over the place from home, from different countries, different geographies, meaning that we have project teams that bring people together from a wide variety of places, and the ability to actually have access to dynamic data and get access to the information we need and the inputs that we can provide wherever we're at is a need of the marketplace today as we have a mobile workforce. And less data with smaller data sources, we're building much more robust data sets in the current world, and meaning that big data now has to be consumed, interpreted, and analyzed and presented to us in a way to where it's useful and not just a bunch of noise. So all these things are things that are helped by having our data and our solutions in the cloud. And on top of that, because of this rapid fire and rapid pace of change and dynamics where the product cycles are shorter, the rise of Agile as an approach to doing our projects has really emerged and has taken hold. Version 1 does a State of Agile survey every year, and one of the more recent surveys said that actually 94% of organizations are now practicing Agile at some place within that organization. Doesn't mean it's broad-based or across the board support, but 94% are doing some Agile in their organizations, and that's up from 80% just in 2011 and continues to trend upward. That being said, just using Agile approaches to managing projects is not really necessarily the best indicator of an organization's agility. PMI has found that smart organizations realize that using Agile techniques is not the only or even the best indicator of an organization's speed or flexibility, and that enlightened organizations are using several different project management approaches and really using the best approach based on the type of project that needs to be done. But that brings in with it other challenges as well. So traditionally, we've had silos of information where people have had traditional project and portfolio management tools, and they've had different Agile solutions where maybe they have different projects being managed in other technologies. Today, with Project Online, we have the ability to bring a unified PPM and Agile solution together and really embrace this hybrid project management world. The ability to have singular or common portfolios that might have different programs or different types of projects, whether they're traditional waterfall type of projects or more Agile approaches to doing those. The idea is that ability is now here where it wasn't just several years ago. If we look at some of the reasons that we can do that, and we look at this graphic where the top blue bar really represents the end-to-end capabilities of a portfolio and project management system like Project Online, the idea is that natively, down the left-hand side, Microsoft Project has traditionally handled the needs of the traditional waterfall project very, very well. It is the most popular planning tool out there for that. We'll talk about the new capabilities it's added in the Agile realm, but the idea is that many people started embarking using popular Agile tools like Visual Studio and JIRA and version 1 and others. And the idea is that those things need to be fed in and be part of that holistic hybrid portfolio management process as well. But they're maybe being executed in other tools separate and distinct from project. There may be other lighter weight tools that are being used for less demanding projects that are things like Office 365 Planner that people are exposing themselves to very rapidly because it comes with Office 365. The idea is, how do we bring these things together? Well, Microsoft is doing that with OneConnect, which is a Microsoft cloud-based connectivity platform that can actually bring the data from these together seamlessly without disrupting the work of the actual individual users in these multiple solutions. Now, Microsoft itself has come up with some advances. Microsoft Project back in November had released some new Agile-based capabilities within Microsoft Project itself and Project Online, introducing a Scrum and a Kanban template in addition to the waterfall style templates that they have. The ability there is that within Microsoft Project Online and in the Project Desktop tool, to be able to, in Project Professional, be able to plan out your backlogs and plan out your iterations and your sprints and manage these things across story and task boards, whether they be iterations or maybe flow-based in a more Kanban type of approach as well. So we'll talk about how that is now in there. So if you don't have Agile tools in place, there's capabilities within Project Online to do that now. Ultimately, there's many people that in advance of that happening have adopted other Agile tools and they're well down the road on those things. So for example, Microsoft's Visual Studio has capabilities in Visual Studio Team Services, formerly TFS on-premise, that allow people to manage in a more agile fashion, managing their complete backlog hierarchies and allocating those stories and those tasks, et cetera, into iterations or sprints. And once again, OneConnect allows you to actually feed that information seamlessly back to the Project Online portfolio. Project Online really is the portfolio management tool in all these cases, where all the program and portfolio management, intake, governance, and investment approval, the financial management and capacity planning still happens there. But in this case, you might use a waterfall project in Project, or maybe use its light Agile features, or using a full-blown Agile solution like Visual Studio to do the execution at your leisure or at your choice, meaning that it can seamlessly support both of these things with OneConnect. Same use case holds if people are using JIRA out there, which is another non-Microsoft popular tool that people are using for Agile approaches out there as well. Now, one of the opportunities we have by bringing these different tools together into a common portfolio of information in Project Online, it allows us to do planning in each of these different tools, but then bring together combined capacity planning, whether it be the tasks or the resource estimates and workloads, so we can get an idea of what our demands are for our resources across all those solutions, whether typically they've been in silos, or when people put them together, they were either done in spreadsheets off to the side that were disconnected from the process, or when they were pulled together, had to be mashed up with some heavy manual effort in order to get that data combined. Also, time reporting. One of the things that happens when you have different solutions is oftentimes teams have to do duplicate entry of information. One to feed their, say, Agile tool in this case, and one to, say, maybe do a timesheet or a status report to the PMO or to the rest of the organization. In this connected model, which is enabled by being in the cloud, you can actually do these things in your tool of choice, like reporting actual time, and have it feed a timesheet in Project Online without having to enter that data in two separate places. These are some of the visions of the interoperability and the ability and ease of having cloud tools talk to one another. And then the reporting side of things. We're going to talk about how Microsoft's innovation in the cloud with Power BI allows you to use a variety of data sources and tap these rich big data sets so that you can get the analytics in the form and format that you want. And having a whole bunch of content or report packs that are available out there to get you started with some good best practice reporting is one of the advantages of being in the cloud and using consistent environments and stable environments to do this in. And then I guess as an aside a little bit, but the leveraging of Microsoft Teams today, this whole idea of using different tools, collaboration, and content mechanisms within the cloud allows us to use Microsoft Teams so a centralized team can use different tools and have access to these through a common forum, whether it be a Project Online schedule or an Office 365 planner plan, whether it be a Visual Studio Agile plan or potentially some reporting via Power BI. The idea is Microsoft Team takes that concept and then really makes it a team-focused experience to get access to all the information and tools that are relevant to that particular team. And with that, we'll get into a little bit of a demonstration of how this all might work. So now I've transitioned into a project center in Microsoft's Project Online. Couple things to notice here. Notice that we are in Office 365, meaning that to do my project and portfolio management, I come in here just like I would any other application in my Office 365 environment. Enabling this for users is as simple as the Office 365 administrator checking a box to enable the different users with the licenses that they need, no longer pushing this stuff out to their desktops and those types of things to make that happen. Getting people enabled and rolled out is much more quick in this day in the cloud than it used to be in the past when we had to push out on-premise software and full-blown applications. One of the benefits here is that people get to focus on getting the work done as opposed to focus on the infrastructure pieces of this, as we used to have to in the past. Now, in here, the ability to come in here into the cloud, be able to get to a central portfolio of projects, be able to look at this portfolio any way we like, and have access to this from anywhere, anywhere we can get to our browser, is powerful for these geographically dispersed teams. Be able to come into an actual project and drill in very quickly and get to different dimensions of that, looking at things like where we're at in the workflow, looking at things like what is the actual current version of the schedule without people having to send this around via PDFs or sending Microsoft project files around the place. And the idea is easily getting to project sites that allow us to collaborate on these particular projects, meaning going out there and looking at documents, issues, risks, other things that might be appropriate per your template, high-level timelines, so that there's one common collaborative place for team members and other interested and people with sufficient access can come in and look at the information regarding a project and participate. Whether it be things like issues, risks, change requests, to-dos, or notebooks for common meeting minutes and other things regarding the project. The idea is all this stuff's available to us at a glance. And then some of the advanced things that you might want to do. For example, in building this, you might have an intake process where ideas and requests come in. This online environment gives you the ability to give your internal and maybe even external customers access to a central ideation or project request area, whereby people can come in and fill out requests that may potentially become projects one day. Notice here I've got some high-level information on the type of project it is, some information on who's involved, things of estimated benefits and cost, maybe some risks or priority assessments, and maybe some information that's even generating a preliminary score, and even some voting, like kind of Yelp style, to determine the sentiment or support for this among the user base. And the idea is that these can be as simple or as powerful as you want them to be. The idea here being to put a request in, you could actually point people to a form and a page that allows you to come in and put in the relevant information and also some information that might drive a preliminary score to help you justify, prioritize, and vet these so that you can actually go through a workflow process to determine what should get promoted and ultimately end up in that project center to make sure that we're working on the right things that bring the right benefit and return to the organization. Ultimately, this can be as simple or even as complex as that simple request that we just showed you, down to full-blown business cases, meaning that's the central form for intake on ideas and requests can go the route of full business cases, where here I'm looking at a summarization of the business case of a particular proposed project, and basically going and looking at the elements that were put in here to help generate that can be a lot more involved and a lot more detailed if you need them to be, rather than just the simple project request that we showed you earlier on. A lot of different data points, justification for the business case and the proposal, and things like different elements of cost, both capital and expense, different labor and types of resources that are required, etc. The idea is that this can be as however involved that you need it to be to match your business process. Now, that being said, you know, when we come in here and we go into managing our projects, those of you that are familiar with Microsoft Project, you know, natively, you would come in to select a project. You would go in and say, I would like to open a project, and I can either open it in the browser, like I looked at the schedule before in the browser, or I can open it up in the full copy of Microsoft Project. The nice thing about this is very much like the context of any other of the Office 365 Office applications. For example, when I go into PowerPoint, it can open that up in a browser version of PowerPoint online so I can view it and maybe do some minor edits. If I wanted to do some really robust graphical things that I want the full power of the full PowerPoint client, I would open up the full client for those types of things, but maybe for most everyday things, I would just open it up in the browser. Same concept from an Office 365 perspective that we have here in Project Online. Now, that being said, we talked about the fact that, and I guess I won't go into the normal capabilities of Microsoft Project today, assuming that most people are familiar with that, but I will go into some things that are new. For example, if I wanted to open up a project and use the new Agile capabilities within Project Online, the idea in Project Pro, notice it looks a little bit different than a traditional Gantt chart that we looked at in the past. We're using the same Microsoft Project Professional application here, but we're having the ability to go in to do planning, and here I'm looking at a sprint planning board where I've got different sprints planned out, different tasks or backlog items that are that have not yet been slotted into different sprints. Some are in sprint 1, sprint 2. I haven't planned out sprint 3 yet. I could actually go into the current sprint board and I can start dragging these tasks across the different progress. So for example, things that are in progress, I can move into a done state in a more agile story or task board type of format. And I can even manage the sprints and iterations and when those are. Here I'm looking at a series of 2-week sprints that I'm planning out those sprints going on forward. Capabilities that we didn't traditionally have in Microsoft Project as we go on through, as we've used it in the past. And the idea is this can be done either from an iteration or more of a pure Kanban flow way in this regard. So be aware that if you're not having, if you don't have an Agile tool you're already committed to, there's some basic Agile capabilities that are now in Project Online and Microsoft Project Desktop in the professional version. Now, that being said, to keep this a more agile portfolio and have a mix of both agile and waterfall projects, we could also use tools like Office 365 Planner. And with Microsoft's One Connect, it allows you to connect seamlessly to these different tools. For example, if I come into this and I approve this social networking integration project, and I decide that it's a lighter weight project that I want to manage in Office 365 Planner, I can just choose to do that and then either create or open this up in Office 365 Planner from a button that the connector puts into the toolbar. And notice here my social networking integration is now opening up in Office 365 Planner, and I can do all the things that I'd like to do in here. So the idea is I can come in, I can work with it, I can assign people to them, I can put descriptions, attachments, I can build sub-checklist items, and they can even have discussion or comment threads associated with each of the tasks within here and move them through the different boards. The idea is I have now the ability to do this project in here in full, but have the net results of the status of this project feed up into the overall portfolio in the Project Center. Same thing holds true with Visual Studio. If I have an Agile project and I'm doing it in Visual Studio, this Fabricam project, I can in turn actually manage that over in Visual Studio and have One Connect feed that information back to the portfolio in Project Online. So for example, here, if I look at the epics, features, user stories, tasks, and bugs in that backlog hierarchy, I can manage that over here. I can actually go in and plan these things into iterations and sprints. And just like people typically do, manage these different iterations and sprints via a story or task board and move these things across like we have in the past. Now, one of the things that's nice is that if you have teams that are using this, to not have to force them to leave the tool of their choice. The idea is to be able to go into their items and update them, whether they're putting effort hours estimates, story points, or effort hours, whether they put in completed work in here. That'll all feed back to Project Online via OneConnect, and even the completed work will populate a timesheet to have them fulfill that need without having to go into two different places to do that. And I would say for those of you who are interested, this particular capability is also available for JIRA. Same use case as Visual Studio, but the idea the folks that are doing their Agile work in there can do the same things by selecting that portfolio item and going over to JIRA for this e-commerce portal development project and doing things like logging work and other things like that if they want to do here. So just something to keep your efforts and on your different Agile components fed into a more holistic portfolio as we go on through. Now, one of the things we get here is the ability to look at a combined resource capacity. And with that combined resource capacity, I could, for example, I could look at all of my business analysts, for example, and I could go look at the total capacity planning for those across all work. And that doesn't matter if it's being executed in project natively or if it's looking at that from the different Agile tools that I'm using. So if I look at a capacity engagement and heat map on this, notice that I've got the Fabricam project and the e-commerce portal development project that came from both JIRA and from Visual Studio factored into the FTE headcount plan as to what projects people are on and whether or not they're over or under allocated. The other key piece is we can have a common intake, meaning from a portfolio analysis, once we're deciding on which projects or requests to work on, we can start looking at these holistically in one place and run scenarios on what the best mix of projects are. So given any dollar volume of budget, for example, or limitation we have, say for $5 million, I can get 83% of the value of my proposed portfolio items or projects done, and these are the ones that we can do. And the idea is we can look at that from both a cost perspective and from a resource perspective as we're determining what's the right mix of projects to work on. Now, ultimately, if we go in and want to look at really the data sets that we're putting forth and the fact that we have a lot of rich information being built and sometimes across multiple tools that are converging into the portfolio here in Project Online, we can actually look at this from a Power BI perspective. Now, one of the nice things about being in the cloud, first of all, is that you get access to Power BI. And one of the things that you do get here is the fact that there is a growing number of out-of-the-box services or OData feeds for both Microsoft and non-Microsoft solutions. The ability of being in the cloud, notice that I've got sales analytics for Dynamics 365, a JIRA connector, other tools in here, GitHub, other ones that seem to be growing by the day allow us to get automatic feeds from these solutions to Power BI so that we can use them as a data source for running our reporting. If we look at other content we can use either certain things like even Excel files and CSV files that we have, or we can use other things like databases or other SQL tables that we have available to us for maybe our homegrown applications. The idea is that our cloud-based operation gives us access more easily to more different data sources as we go on through without necessarily having a big data warehouses to do that. Now, that being said, I could come into my reporting and I can build dashboards with these data sources. And notice here in this example, I've got a combination of both traditional PPM metrics like cost, risk, return on investment, the classic PPM bubble chart, this one on an ROI versus risk axes, and then just some KPIs regarding the projects or initiatives we're working on. But also notice for the Agile projects, I've got Agile metrics over here on the other side in the same dashboard. Things like burn ups and burn downs, bug trends, cumulative flow diagrams to track scope. The idea is that we can have different multi-dimensional dashboards put together at our fingertips. And if we come through here and we just want to look at overall portfolio status, the ability to get reporting out to people that maybe aren't hands-on with the project and portfolio management solution is very strong. to be able to get high-level metrics that you want to see coming from the solutions that we're working on. Looking at a summary, for example, of KPIs, et cetera, that we might want to work on and look at, see where some of our problem areas are. Being able to look at financial information about our projects, being able to look at work effort on our projects, and even be able to summarize and roll up things like all the issues and risks and change requests we have across all of our projects are things that become a natural output of this. By going into this holistic type of system and having it fed seamlessly by a variety of different data sources allows us to use this information very quickly without having the compiling of this information becoming a project in and of itself. So just some ideas there on some of the power of bringing this to the cloud. And the idea here that not having to worry about the infrastructure components, and we'll talk about some pre-configured ways to get these things up, is ways that you can actually get the value on these things much quicker and have a time to solution that's rapidly much more time effective than what it used to be with on-premise solutions. So with that, let me go back to some concepts here. So when we talk about getting these things up quickly in the cloud, one of the things that Microsoft has been able to innovate is our 1 PPM Kickstart. And the 1 PPM is a rich pre-configured environment that adds a lot of best practices that people seem to want to do over and over again, that instead of paying a consultant to do these as if they'd never done it before, we want to leverage that experience with our customers and bring these to the party, meaning that whole project request process, requirements tracking, financials, benefit realization, risk and issue management, change requests, test cases, lessons learned, a variety of things that we have in templates that people want to leverage, all get installed out of the box. And then really the configuration time is reserved for only things that are unique to you. And it really limits the amount of consulting time and the length of the engagement that it takes to get you up and running with a system that's well aligned with you. Also on the analytics side, the things that we showed you today regarding reports, both Microsoft and Microsoft have a robust set of out-of-the-box content packs or report packs that can get you anywhere from 40 to 60 out-of-the-box reports that have a lot of best practices, but they're not locked down, meaning that you could modify them to meet your specific needs. The idea is, once again, you're not having to start from scratch on this, and then everybody's needs for reporting sometimes are slightly different, and the idea here is that it accelerates you into a time to solution, leveraging reports from a variety of different third-party apps and data sources. And then on top of that, as we look through here, OneConnect. We talked about how OneConnect from Microsoft really addressed the Agile piece and the Office 365 piece, but it's also just as valid and in place for things like integrations with your financial systems, which is often a key thing that people wants to integrate with for their PPM solution. Also, their ITSM solutions like ServiceNow or Dynamics or Service Cloud, or even their CRM systems like Salesforce and Dynamics CRM. Just some of the use cases that we have out there that being in the cloud enables us to do much more easily. So if we go to recap the benefits of moving to Project Online, one, you have your integration with common collaboration tools. So meaning the fact that it's tied in with SharePoint and Exchange and with Teams and other things like that gives you a really robust collaborative project environment all in one solution. So the other piece is that it's all work in one system. So if we have waterfall projects, agile projects, and maybe even some more unstructured work like service requests, we can get that all in one solution, track the resource capacity, even collect time against those things, all in one system. We have a lower cost of ownership, and hopefully we talked about that and demonstrated that to you, or illustrated that at least, for the cloud-based solution as opposed to doing this on-prem. The ability to always be up to date with the latest technology without having to go through painful upgrades is an advantage. The scalability, meaning that it will scale with you, but from a compute power and computing resources basis, automatically is one aspect, and then scaling and just in capability and maturity of capability that you want to leverage within the solution as you're ready for it is an advantage of doing this in the cloud. Better governance and control by going from that ideation and business request or business case through it becoming a project and executing all the way through allows you to do that in one cloud environment. And even for people who maybe even only put a project request in once a year, that request area is available to them so the entire organization can participate. And also immediate results, meaning since we're not focusing on getting on IT's prioritization schedule and we're not worried about managing the infrastructure, we can actually get to work with our project management, portfolio management quicker right away and just focus on the things that are in our charge to do and not worry about the IT aspects of this. On an infrastructure stability, Microsoft invests billions into their data infrastructure, security, and redundancy. The idea is that stability means it's one thing we don't have to worry about or one aspect we don't worry about any longer as we manage our projects. Improve collaboration with the collaborative tools we talked about earlier on. Mobility and access. There's mobile apps for certain aspects of Project Online, as well as the ability to use things like Power Apps to make access via mobile devices much easier based upon what you would like to do. And project apps are in the App Store that in the cloud allow you to plug those things in and use them very easily to enhance third-party apps that might be applicable to the things that you want to do. It's easy to use, meaning it's familiar from an Office 365 perspective, and just the navigation is not complex. And the portfolio management advanced capabilities like we talked about can do scenario modeling if you're ready to do that. The robust reporting with Power BI is just, it's evolving over time and capabilities are being added almost daily. And the idea there is that almost anything you want to do on the reporting side of things can be just a natural output of you managing your projects and your portfolios. And ultimately, you're never going to have to worry about whether you're on the latest and greatest or having availability to the newest cutting edge technology, because as it becomes available, you will get it immediately, meaning you don't have to plan it into your upgrade path. So just a lot of things to consider as advantages of being in Project Online or just managing these things in the cloud. Now, one aspect of outsourcing this, outsourcing your infrastructure and the application management to this SaaS offering in Project Online. It's also many organizations are constrained by the available resources and they're running very lean these days. One thing that Microsoft does to enhance that is offer managed services, meaning to manage this, or PMO, or project as a service. Some organizations say they can't embark upon putting a new system in place because they're too busy doing other things. Microsoft can actually bring in a team that's managed by Microsoft to come in and get this thing up and running for you quickly on a turnkey basis. And we even have some clients that actually use us as a service to administer their system and their process and make their updates and make sure that they don't have to do that themselves while they can focus on managing projects. The idea is that managed services is some aspect for resource-constrained folks that they might want to consider. And if we look at this PMO, or project as a service, it really provides experts at a predictable cost that are managed by us, and we are responsible for the quality and the deliverables to you. It's a productized service, it's outsourced PMO types of services, and it is a Microsoft managed team. Some of the benefits is that you can get instant value because we're coming in with a lot of experience and getting these things up. There's no learning curve on your part and trial and error on getting a solution up. We have built-in expertise so we can help guide you to get best practices in place that align with the way you do business. We have agile and scalable teams, means we can ramp up and ramp down based upon the workload, based upon the service that we are providing for you. It also can help drive user adoption and productivity by making it more predictable and, let's just say, getting this out the door and in the user's hands and putting our best foot forward right away, rather than having to stumble with some trial and error like many people do as they're learning technologies for the first time. We can also maximize ROI through best practice advice and recommendations because we're available to you at all times, and just ultimately have fast support for all questions, technical issues, and configuration issues that you might want addressed. So just think about that as you think about what Microsoft can offer. Now, from a summary and wrap-up perspective, think of Microsoft as a one-stop shop to support you in these cloud efforts. We have business applications, whether it be things that we've developed or ones that we deploy that Microsoft has in the Microsoft Cloud or a combination thereof. We provide all the consulting services to help you become effective with that and get the best return and realize the best return on those investments. We provide all the education and training that you might want, and as well as the staffing and managed services to help support or supplement you with a contingent workforce. An offer is, if you're interested in looking at Project Online and you haven't already, one of the things that Microsoft offers is the idea of a free chaperone trial. Rather than just say, here's your trial and go have at it, we will actually enable a test drive of Project Online for you today. And that test drive really allows you to evaluate it, get hands-on with it, and even put some of your own data and processes in place to do that. What is Microsoft willing to do for this? We can give you a 4-week trial period. We can actually use our pre-configured best practices to help you test drive those. We can tailor some of those based on a questionnaire process to get some of your terminology and things in there. We can also provide some walkthrough training, support, and advisory services and check-ins so that as we go through, we can get your questions answered and actually put you in the right direction on getting the most out of the solution. And we can ultimately help based upon that and understanding your business a little more, help you with the business case support and help you identify what the total cost of ownership might be to get into that solution as well. And we'll do this for you all at no charge. So for next steps, we could either do some type of free assessment and provide you a roadmap of what it would take to get into Project Online from where you're at today. We'll do that free Project Online chaperone trial with Microsoft support. Or if you saw some things in this very high-level generalized demo today that you're interested in, but it was just too general, we could also schedule a personalized one-on-one that's more targeted to the things that you want to talk about as well. And we're happy to do that. If you want to reach out to us, you can reach out in general to us at nasales@microsoft.com. That's short for North America Sales at microsoft.com. Mike Otranto is in our business development and area, and who did the introduction today. You can reach out to him directly, or if I'm happy to answer any questions as well that you have or inquiries. So you'll be getting a copy of these slides as we go after we get off of here. And so you'll have all this information at your disposal. Check out more about us at us.microsoft.com. We also have project-online.com with availability for trial information and things like that. And we also have a whole slew. We do weekly webinars. So we have upcoming webinars you can register for at microsoft.com/webinars, or there's a whole library of past on-demand recorded ones that you can just go look at with a rich variety of topics that might be of interest to you. So with that, I know we packed a lot into this hour. Hopefully you got some value out of this today, and I got intrigued by some of the things that are possible with a cloud or SaaS-based solution of Project Online. Thank you again for your time today, and hope you're having a great day.